My name is Yara. I am a language expert on a science ship called the Copernicus. My job is to study how different beings speak and communicate. It is a quiet job, usually. A lot of reading, a lot of note-taking, a lot of coffee going cold on my desk while I stare at old recordings of sounds that no one has been able to explain yet. I was doing exactly that when the white alarm went off. Not a red alarm. Red means danger. White means something far more unusual. White means that sensors have picked up a ship, or a signal, or something that does not belong to any known human craft. I had trained for this alarm 11 times in 4 years. It had never actually sounded, not once. When it finally did, I knocked my coffee straight off my desk and ran. Everyone on the Copernicus ran. All 93 of us. Through the narrow corridors, past the storage rooms and the small kitchen that always smelled like recycled bread, past the exercise room where nobody ever exercised, we all ran toward the bridge. We were scared and excited at the same time, which is a very uncomfortable way to feel, and not something the training films ever warned us about. On the main screen, I saw them. 3 ships hung in the darkness between us and the gas giant we had been studying for the past 8 months. They were enormous. The largest one was the size of a city. Not a small city either. The kind of city with old stone buildings and rivers running through it, and hundreds of years of history written into its walls. That was how big their ship was. And it just sat there, patient and still, as if it had all the time in the universe. Which, as I would soon learn, it very nearly did. Our commander, Ellen, turned to me from her seat. She is a tall woman with short gray hair, and the kind of calm expression that only comes from having been in genuinely difficult situations many times before. But even she looked, in that moment, like someone who had swallowed a stone. "Yara," she said, "they are transmitting. Tell me what they are saying." I sat down at my station and looked at the data coming through. What I saw made me stop breathing for a moment. They had not sent us a series of random signals that we would need to spend years figuring out. They had sent us a complete key to their own language, a map of their words and sounds and meanings, carefully arranged so that a system like mine could begin reading it almost immediately. They had done this before, many times, and they knew exactly how to be understood. It took me 4 hours to finish the translation. 4 hours of the fastest, most focused work of my life, while everyone else on the bridge sat in near silence, watching the giant ships and waiting. When I finally looked up from my screen, I told Ellen everything. The beings who had found us called themselves the Vathari. Their civilization was old in a way that is almost impossible to say out loud without it sounding made up. They had existed, without ever fully collapsing, for over 400,000 years. In that time, they had built a galactic empire made up of 6,000 member worlds. They had spoken to 89 other species before us. They had watched civilizations rise from nothing into greatness, and they had watched others burn out like candles in the wind. They carried the history of all of it with them, the way you carry a book in a bag, always there, always heavy. They had found us, they said, because of a particular kind of noise we made, not radio signals, not the lights of our cities as seen from far away. Something else, something they described in their language, with a phrase that took me 3 tries to get right in English. The closest I could manage was this: the noise of improbable survival. Their lead diplomat was called Ambassador Sethalion. Speaking that name correctly, without accidentally saying something rude in their language, took me nearly 2 hours of practice. Sethalion sent us a formal message, the same message they had sent to every species before us, word for word. It explained the structure of the empire. It described the accord of mutual elevation, a set of agreements that had kept peace among thousands of worlds for 300,000 years. It offered us a place at the edge of that agreement, as observers first, before anything more. Then they asked us for something in return. They asked us to send a record of who we are, our history, our biology, how we live, what we believe, all of it. Ellen looked at me. "What do we send?" I thought about it for only a moment. "Everything," I said. "Exactly what they asked for." We spent 18 hours putting it together. We sent them our complete public record. The whole long, complicated, often painful, sometimes beautiful story of the human race. Every great invention, every terrible mistake, every time we nearly ended ourselves and somehow did not, Every time one group of people decided that another group of people did not deserve to live, and the long, slow, costly work of proving that idea wrong, we sent them our science and our art, our medicine and our music, our oldest myths and our newest discoveries. We sent them everything, without hiding the parts that were difficult to look at. Sethalion confirmed that the council would review our materials. They expected the process to take about one of our months. It took 11 days. I was asleep when my communicator lit up. I had not slept properly in 3 days, and I was in the middle of a dream about my grandmother's garden when the bridge called me back. I made it there in 4 minutes, with my hair still pressed flat on one side and my shoes on the wrong feet, which I did not notice until much later. Something was happening with the Vathari ships. Their energy readings were changing in a pattern that made no tactical sense. The signals coming from them were unlike anything we had recorded from them before. They were irregular and repeating, rising and falling. My system processed them quickly and flagged them with a label that I read twice, because the first time I was sure I had misunderstood. Biological vocalization, involuntary, high intensity, recurring. The Vathari were laughing. Not one or two of them, all of them, the crews of 3 enormous ships, thousands of beings in total, were laughing so hard that their ship's own internal sensors were registering it as a significant event happening across the entire vessel at once. The sound was not coming through in any way we could directly hear, but we could read it in the data as clearly as if they had simply opened a window and let it pour out into space. No one on our bridge said a word for a long moment. I think we were all asking ourselves the same question at the same time. Should we feel insulted? A civilization 400,000 years old, having read our entire history, had apparently decided that the correct response was to laugh for 11 days straight. That is, on its surface, not obviously a good sign. It was our ship's doctor, Dara, who broke the silence. She was standing near the back of the bridge with her arms crossed, and she made a short sound through her nose that was unmistakably a laugh, and then she shook her head and laughed a little more, and then a little more, and within a minute, I was watching the entire bridge crew give in to the exact same feeling. One by one, people who had been sitting very straight and very seriously in their chairs started smiling, and then grinning, and then actually laughing out loud at the absurdity of the situation. 4 centuries of history, every war and every triumph, and every peculiar human habit we had ever developed, delivered to a civilization older than recorded memory, and their response was to lose complete composure. I laughed into my sleeve. I could not help it. Then the transmission indicator lit up. Sethalion was calling us directly. I straightened up, took a breath, answered. Who? The ambassador's face on our screen was composed now. Whatever had been happening on their side for the past 11 days had settled into something quieter. The eyes looking at us were large and very still, and they carried in them the particular kind of warmth that belongs to someone who has just been genuinely surprised by something they did not expect to find beautiful. We have contacted 89 peoples before you, Sethalion said, and my translation system turned those words into English with the kind of precision I had spent 4 years training it toward. When we review a species before making contact, we are looking for specific things. We want to understand if a new people will add to the accord or cause harm to it. We have seen many patterns over the long years. Some species we find have already disappeared before we arrive. Some have stayed exactly the same for 50,000 years. Some are brilliant but break easily. Some last a long time but never ask new questions. A pause. You are none of these things. Ellen leaned forward slightly. What are we then? In the span of 300,000 of your years, the ambassador said, you have come very close to ending yourselves no fewer than 6 times. Weapons capable of making your world unable to support life. Damage to your environment that should have been irreversible. Sicknesses that spread faster than your understanding of medicine could move. Shortages of the basic things you need to survive. Deep divisions between groups of your own people. So serious that every model we use to predict outcomes said the result should be the end of your civilization. Another pause. Longer this time. And every time, you stopped. You did not stop neatly. You did not stop quickly. You argued. Loudly and for a very long time, you argued. And then you changed direction. Not without great cost, not without loss, but you changed. I realized I had been holding my breath again. I let it out slowly. The species we have watched fail, Xenolinguist continued, generally fail in one of two ways. They are either too fixed in their ways to change when they need to, or they are too unstable to work together long enough to survive. By every measurement we use, your people should be both at once. And yet here you are, in a ship you built yourselves, in a corner of the galaxy you found on your own, speaking to us. The translation system flagged the next phrase, as it always did when a concept did not fit cleanly into English. I looked at the options it gave me, and I chose the closest one. We find this deeply funny, Xenolinguist said, and deeply admirable. Among ourselves, we are not yet sure which feeling is the larger one. Dara, standing quietly off to the side, said softly, I'm going to take that as a compliment. It is intended as one, said Xenolinguist. There is more. Your physical bodies. You tolerate pain to a degree that our medical division has been discussing with great interest since your records arrived. You practice activities that regularly cause you injuries, and you do this for enjoyment and competition. You consume substances that are immediately harmful to most known life. You run very long distances simply to test whether you are able to. You leap from elevated positions. You recover from damage that would leave 11 of our member species permanently altered. A beat. Your young require an unusually long period of care. They are not able to survive on their own for years. And yet your people treat that period of care as one of the most important things a person can do. Our sociologists had to develop entirely new frameworks to describe what they were seeing. We like our children, Dara said again, with the same calm tone. So we observed, said Xenolinguist, and I was certain, looking at the screen, that I could see a smile. The council has reviewed your application. A decision has been reached. The ambassador paused in the deliberate way of someone who has practiced this moment many times and knows the weight of it. Dr. Yara, you work with language. Are you familiar with the idea of a word that has two meanings at once? One that is formal and one that is said between friends? Yes, I said. Very familiar. We have a formal name for every people who join our accord. And we have a different word, an informal one, used only among ourselves and never in any official document, for a people who arrive the way you have arrived. The translation system flagged the phrase, high difficulty. I looked at every option it offered me. None of them were exactly right, but one came close enough. In your language, Xenolinguist said, you might call it something like, the ones who should not have made it, who somehow did, and whom we are very glad to see. 6 months have passed since that conversation. I am writing this from a station near the edge of the threshold system, which is what the Vathari call the region of space that sits at the entrance to the Accord. The formal ceremony to welcome humanity is 9 days from now. I have been told it is a dignified occasion, ancient and solemn, and full of the kind of ceremony that 400,000 years of practice can produce. I have also been told, quietly and with a smile, by one of Xenolinguist's staff, that 3 separate informal bets are running among the senior Vathari diplomatic delegation. All 3 concern whether we will do something unexpected during the ceremony. Commander Ellen, upon hearing this, gathered the crew and asked, very seriously, whether we wanted to lose those bets on purpose. We voted. The result was not close. I think about that a lot, in the quiet moments when the station hums around me, and the stars outside the window are other people's suns, full of other people's worlds. I think about what it means that a civilization older than our oldest stories looked at everything we sent them and laughed, not to mock us, not because we seemed small, but because we surprised them, because after 400,000 years and 89 meetings, they had never seen anything quite like us before. They have a phrase in their language for things that work when they should not, things that survive through some combination of stubbornness and hope, and sheer refusal to accept the obvious conclusion. My translation engine handles it now without any trouble. It comes up again and again in the documents they eventually shared with us. It means, as closely as I can say it in English, gloriously improbable. I think we can live with that. Honestly, I think it suits us perfectly.